Imagine, if you can, being accustomed to seeing the world in all of its bright technicolor beauty. And then, you can't. You're blind. It's a loss that goes far beyond a loss of vision, being plunged into a world of physical and emotional darkness, where you can't find your way out. Out of the darkness, navigating life after blindness. This week on My Healthy Mind. Let's talk about it. Welcome to My Healthy Mind. I'm Anthony Policella. When we think about what it means to become blind, what we're generally talking about is the loss of eyesight. But of course, it's much more than that. It's the loss of familiarity, the loss of independence. It's the loss of confidence and security, the loss of joy, and all too often, it's the loss of a will to live. Today, my colleague Elizabeth Atkins talks with Jeff Hawkins about his slow, progressive descent into blindness and how he ultimately came into the light, with a little help from his friend.
Jeff, welcome to My Healthy Mind.
Oh, thank you.
We're glad to have you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So you weren't born blind.
No.
You lived a very normal, active, outdoorsy, or crazy active, as you call it, life until at around age 23 you began to go blind.
That's right.
Can you tell us your story?
Yeah, well, it's exactly that. I was that typical outgoing, very social 21-year-old guy, just living my life pretty hard, like most of us did. And about 23, I went to the Secretary of State to renew my driver's license, and the lady said, "Would you read the letters, as you know?" And she said, "No, I need you to start from the left." And I did it again, and she said, "No, I need you to start from the left." And I did it again, and she said, "You're not doing this." And I said, "Well, I am," and I moved my head around a little bit and used more of my right eye, and found that I was actually missing about 5 or 6 letters on the left side. And to the point where I probably irritated this person because I just wanted to be able to read these. It was very confusing, like, well, what's going on here? Because to that point, I had no idea that I had any visual difficulties to speak of. I mean, like nothing. And so over the course of the next few months, I saw specialists and doctors and testing and so on. And I was ultimately given a diagnosis of Stargardt's disease. It's a juvenile form of macular degeneration, a dry form. It's not the wet form that, or the age-related form that most people are familiar with. Well, I was 23 when diagnosed, and like most people at that age, most guys are just young people at 23, I thought I was bulletproof, and I chose to just forget about it and do nothing. I just finished my coming out of college with my paramedic license, and which was a lifelong dream of mine. I always wanted to do that job, and I finally achieved it. And it was everything that you might imagine it would be. I mean, there's the blood, there's the guts, there's the delivering babies, there's just action all the time. I'm a bit of an adrenaline junkie, so it was sort of right up my alley. And I stepped off into that career, and I was able to do it for, probably 23 years or so, before my vision got to the point where it was no longer safe. I was able to continue working due to the kindness and the help of coworkers and the people in the community that were aware of my situation. By the 1990s, I had become legally blind, and I knew at that point I had to take an early retirement. It was a very heartbreaking time for me because it was something that I wanted to do and probably would still be doing, at least on some basis, today. I was in total denial of my blindness, and I refused to accept it, and I also decided I wasn't going to be one of those people that or that have that stereotypical view of sitting on a corner begging for nickels with your white cane and your tin cup.
My job was causing me so much stress.
I felt disconnected and frightened.
I felt so isolated.
I was beginning to feel trapped, depressed. I never expected that to happen to me.
We think nobody else feels the pain that we feel, but that is so untrue.
It's good to be able to talk about it.
I was able to seek help. I found it from Team Wellness.
It's a sense of freedom.
Team Wellness Center. You are not alone.
So the definition of legally blind is really twofold. We look at someone's distance vision and we look at their side or peripheral view. What legally blind does not mean is that a person is in total darkness. In contrast, actually, they have some usable residual vision. With Stargardt's disease and the group of conditions known as macular degeneration, these diseases start with the person losing their central vision. Most typically, with glaucoma, the vision loss starts with the peripheral view. And lastly, with diabetic retinopathy, this vision loss can be in the central or the peripheral view.
So tell us how you were coping with such an enormous loss, your eyesight. You said you were in denial, but how could you ignore something like this?
Well, it was pretty easy for me, because that's basically what I did, is I ignored it. And you know, in my personal life, when things really began to fail, you know, there's things that most people don't think about. Simple things like personal hygiene, clipping my nails, you know, shaving. Did I get everything off right? Am I crooked? Combing my hair, does it look right? Dress, you know, is my shirt on inside out? You know, that's probably happened over the years. But so things along that line. I realized that I needed to do something, you know, that this is, I just can't go on like this. And of course my wife is saying, we got to do something because this just isn't working. I was closed in the house, and on a winter day here in Michigan, you go from window to window to window waiting for my wife to get home, or my son. And you know, she'd come home from a hard day of work and want to put her feet up, and I'd say, no, change your clothes. I got to get out of the house and go do something. So it was an ugly time, if you will, and that's the way I lived my life. And then eventually it became an issue. I was stepping off in front of cars and being yelled at by people, you know, what are you, blind or something? And I'm thinking in my head, well, yeah, I sort of am, you know. And in the beginning years, as I started to notice some changes, I sort of just kept pushing it away and pretending it wasn't real, finding myself sort of agreeing with things that visually people are telling me about, even though I hadn't seen them. There was a lot of hiding behind this facade of this can't be happening to me, and you know, I don't want it happening to me, kind of thing. I've come to the point now with that I realize that that's just the way it is, you know, and a lot of anger, frustration, I'm sure some depression at points. How I coped with it, I didn't. I just pretended it wasn't real until there was no other way to look at it but being real. And really what happened to me is I began to lose the person that I was, and went to a very dark place.
When depression meets hope, everything can change. Give someone who's struggling the help they desperately need. Your support of the National Alliance on Mental Illness funds programs and support groups that can transform a life. Be a part of the NAMI effect. Hope starts with you.
So People with progressive vision loss sometimes may experience mental health issues related to anxiety and depression associated with grief. Now, the grief is really related to not only the loss of their visual functioning, but the loss of the life they previously experienced. Some of these symptoms of anxiety and depression may be the following: a feeling of hopelessness, anger, fear, an inability to carry on with activities that we used to enjoy, isolation from others and from within the community. All of these contribute to an individual's mental health issues.
Jeff, you really struggled through a long time coping with going blind. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, for 10 or more years, as we've talked about earlier, the whole denial thing and probably some ego and other things that go along with it. I joke a lot of time when I'm speaking about, I liken it to, my wife will say, let's stop and ask for directions. Me as the guy says, nah, we'll find our way. So there's just some stubbornness in there, I think, just in our gender to start with. But really just overall denial and frustration. And I got to the point after 10 or more years that I realized I gotta try something. And I went online and I ordered my own white cane. And to step out that front door that first time and start walking down the street with this cane in front of me was a horrible experience, to be honest with you. It was very awkward, but as I did it more, I became more comfortable with it.
What made you realize that the cane was not for you?
First of all, nothing wrong with cane travel, but for me, it became sort of it helped immensely, but it seemed to draw the kind of attention to me that I wasn't really interested in. I'll give you an example. If I was walking down, when I first started traveling with the cane, walking down the sidewalk in Rochester, one day my wife said, "Boy, I wish you could see." And I said, "Well, of course, so do I." I said, "Well, why is that?" She says, "It is literally like you are Moses. I mean, the sidewalk for 100 feet in front of you is parting." And I'm like, "What?" And as I'm walking down, as I got close enough to see movement of people, that's exactly what was happening. I mean, people were literally putting their backs up against the wall. So that was the part that's finally started turning me off of the situation, if you will. If I walked into a room, a party or somewhere, people certainly respect and allow you room. They see the cane, they know you're blind, but they look at you differently. You know, they don't approach you. They don't, so you're sort of you're pushed back in that dark world. At least I was, not everybody, and that should be made clear.
Then you got your dog.
I got my dog. Yes, I did. I got Gracie, and from that moment on, I began to get my life back and find the guy that I lost.
Michigan is home to thousands of legally blind people of all ages. This means that as a driver, sooner or later you'll encounter a pedestrian who is blind. When you see a pedestrian using a leader dog or white cane, your responsibility is simply to follow the rules of the road and obey all traffic signals. Don't honk at a blind pedestrian or stop at a green light to let them cross. They'll use their hearing and their dog or cane to stay safe. We just need you to do your part.
Some people with vision loss have to face challenges that others do not. They might have to look at alternative careers or employment, and in some cases they may have to stop working altogether until they learn the skills that they need to go back and pursue their careers. In addition to this, many people with vision loss, we take this for granted, they have to stop driving, and they have to rely on family members and public transportation to start navigating through their communities. This is where the support of family and friends is so critical. The good news is that once people regain some of the skills that they need to carry on with their life, for example, learning new independent living skills, going back and learning vocational rehabilitation techniques specifically for people with low vision or who are visually impaired, or for that matter, who are totally blind. Once they gain these skills and their confidence comes back, their life comes back.
Jeff, tell us how you got paired with Gracie and what she's meant to your life.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing, and I love when I get asked this question, actually, because it's an incredible thing, that the way they match these dogs with the clients. And basically, Leader Dog for the Blind, they require that you have some type of formal cane training, which I did. And so I spent a week with them, and so they got to know me at that point, a little bit about my personality and those types of things and my activities level. So you give them, you kind of get them a little bit of that information, and then they talk to you. You know, there's a one-on-one kind of interview, like, you know, what do you like to do? And, you know, like, I like to walk, but sometimes I want to power walk, so I need a dog that'll go fast. I need a dog that'll keep up with me, you know, all this stuff. I would say it took about 3 months before they finally called and said, you know what, can you come? We believe we got the perfect match for you. And you don't know what it is, right? It could be a black lab, a yellow lab, a golden retriever, a shepherd. It could, you have no idea what kind of dog you're gonna get. So there's a lot of anxiety and excitement along with that. But you move right in for 26 days. The first day on campus you spend with your trainer, and he's kind of like your dog, right? So he's holding the harness, and we're in downtown Rochester, and and we were learning the commands forward and right and left and find the curb and all the things that we need to know. And eventually there was a knock at my door, and inbound this 16-month-old yellow lab pup. And I mean, if you think you don't have tears coming down your eyes at that point, my goodness, it was one of the most powerful emotional moments of my life. And she jumped on me and licked me and just played and spun and played and all this stuff. By the third morning, when the alarm goes off and I get out of bed, her tail's going so hard her butt can't stay still. So I knew at that moment, 3 days later, that the connection was made. And so for the next 23, 24 days at that point, we trained everywhere. I mean, we were in the malls, we were in Target, we were in Myers, we were in Detroit, we were in the People Mover, the casinos, in neighborhoods, in the woods, anywhere where you would conceivably use the dog, we trained. After the 26 days, you come home and the training is not done yet, because remembering Gracie's been trained for somebody that's totally blind, right? And I have some residual vision. So we have to work through those issues, and she's in my environment and learning my life, and I'm learning more about how she's going to act in my life. And so, yeah, you know, the beauty about being paired with Gracie in 2012 is very quickly I began to find that person that I lost, and that sounds a little maybe melodramatic, but it's so honestly true, not only with me, but anybody who has been blessed to have a leader dog. And that's exactly what it did. It gave me my independence, my mobility back, and quickly comes this self-confidence and self-esteem. And all that stuff came back, and I began to find the person that I lost. And I'm now water skiing, snow skiing, jet skiing, boating, swimming. Recently, my wife and I started the backwood wilderness backpacking that Gracie goes with us. And Gracie and I go everywhere together, and over the last 5.5 years, there's only been a very few times that I didn't have her with me. I mean, we are joined at the hip, and we are the perfect working team.
Stress, depression, and severe mental illness can happen to anyone. Team Wellness Center has been helping those struggling with these conditions in southeastern Michigan.
They get a chance to know that somebody's on their team.
We think nobody else feels the pain that we feel. We feel like I'm the only one, but that is so untrue.
Within 24 hours of reaching out to our team, members receive psychiatric evaluations and begin the necessary treatment for recovery.
Working through my problems and seeing that I'm not the only one that has to cope has really brought me to a place where now it's okay to talk about it.
Because if you keep stuff to yourself, you know, you can't overcome. We all need one another.
Team Wellness Center. You are not alone.
Welcome to My Healthy Mind,
A show that dares to talk about mental health matters that touch nearly every family. Each week you'll meet guests who share their stories, hear from local experts, and learn about resources that may help.
And so I was in a committee meeting at the House of Representatives when I realized that my daughter had autism.
We need to take the stigma away from mental health issues.
No topics about mental health and wellness are off limits on our show.
Let's talk about it on My Healthy Mind.
Tell us about how, with Gracie's help of finding yourself again, you can enjoy your family life again.
Well, I guess the best answer for that would just be it has changed my outlook and my attitude and everything about, there's no darkness in my life anymore, which really allows me to, like we said earlier, live my life and love my life again, but it's much happier family-wise, you know, wife and grandkids, and it's just all up really good at this point.
So what are your goals for the future?
Well, it's absolutely to continue doing what I'm doing. I'm very passionate about any education I can offer to anybody in public, whether it be what the dogs do for us or the services out there and that sort of thing. And going back to, we are not that guy sitting on the corner with a white cane and a cup begging nickels. We are educated. We have so much to offer. I think the statistic is like 70% of disabled people are unemployed, and that's a lot of untapped abilities out there. So my goal is to continue to do that, and I've recently been involved with a new program at LeaderDog called Harness the Power of Leadership. And it's a one-day seminar that's been developed for mid to high-end management to correlate how Gracie and I became such a great working team, some of those tools and how they are so tied into proper communication, proper teamwork, and those types of things with dealing with your team groups or work groups, if that's what you want to call them. And it's quite amazing. It's an awesome program, and so I'm getting involved in that, and I hope that blossoms into something really big as well. But my goal is just to get out there and keep doing what I was doing.
Jeff, now, is there any particular message that you'd like to leave with our viewers about an experience you might have had that could encourage people?
I think simply it would be that I understand where you're at or where you're headed, but from my perspective, please understand I'm telling you there are services out there, there are organizations out there, there's all kinds of tools out there, whether they be speaking devices or magnifying devices. There's so much out there to help us continue living a normal life, including these awesome leader dogs. But you know, it brings me to a thought of I was in Delaware in April and speaking at an elementary school. And now you picture there's 650 kids sitting Indian style out there on the floor. And if you think that things don't work, aren't for a reason, out of 650 kids, this guy picked this one young man who was sitting very near the front, and I could see that his head was down at the floor, and very meekly said into this microphone, how does a dog work, you know? And I said, well, you sort of saw how the dog works, and you know, I explained a couple of things, and then he said, because I don't see well. I said, you don't see well? He said, no, I don't see well. I said, well, what can you see? And he looked to his left, and there was across the row, and he says, well, I can see there's somebody sitting there, but it's all fuzzy, and I can't see it. And I says, my gosh. I said, all right. And so my immediate response was, when we're over here, when this is done, you come up here and see me, and I'm going to let you walk. I'm going to let you walk with Gracie, and you can see what the dogs can do. And so the event got over, and the little guy stood up, and we made sure that he got up to me, and I got him. I stood there, and I think he was a fourth grader, so he's just a short guy, and I got the harness in his hand, and I said, now I said, tell Gracie to find the door. And so very meekly he said, "Gracie, find the door." And and Gracie took off and walked him to the door. And the whole time, it's going to make me cry, I'm telling you. The whole time over there, he just kept saying, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." And we got to the door, and he turned and looked at me, and I just kind of got down and put my arm around him. I said, "Look, you know, understand that look at me, you know, I'm out traveling again and I'm doing what I'm doing, and there's so much stuff out there for you. Don't get discouraged. There's, you know, the same thing, the organizations and your school counselors, and you can work through this." And he's just like, yeah. I said, "Okay, you got it." He says, "Yes, I do." And he turned and he walked about 3 feet away, and this little guy turned around and ran up and gave me the biggest bear hug in the world. And I swear to God, it was just, I mean, teary-eyed and everything at that moment.
Jeff, thank you so much for sharing all these wonderful insights and information. And thank you, Gracie, for joining us to show the power of leader dogs.
Yep, she's an awesome thing. Thank you very much. I love to share.
Thank you for watching today. I hope that we've shed some light on the mental and emotional effects of acquired blindness and how Leader Dogs for the Blind can help you or someone you love out of darkness. I think that Gracie here has also made us see why she and dogs like her are truly man's best friend. If you'd like to talk or read more about this or any other mental health issue, please reach out to us on our website, myhealthymind.com, through Twitter @myhealthymind, or on Facebook. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week for another edition of My Healthy Mind. Let's talk about it. And now, we'll leave you with My Healthy Minute.
My Healthy Minute, covering breaking mental health news, legislation, discoveries, and resources.
Leader Dogs for the Blind was founded in 1939 to enable people who are blind or visually impaired to travel safely and independently through partnership with a guide dog. Today, our services include training on how to travel using a white cane and a summer camp for teenagers to boost their travel and leadership skills. There are over 1.3 million legally blind people in the United States, but only a small percentage use a white cane or a guide dog. Our challenge is to reach people who can benefit from our programs to let them know our services are provided free of charge. Leader Dogs for the Blind does not receive any government funding. Individuals, corporations, foundations, and service organizations such as the Lions Clubs makes up our donor base and allows us to provide all our services free of charge. If you know someone who is legally blind that could benefit from training on how to use a white cane or a guide dog, please have them contact Leader Dogs for the Blind at 888-777-5332 or go online to leaderdog.org.